The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the marble corridors of Kensington Palace as Sergeant Major Thomas Hartwell adjusted his ceremonial uniform one final time. 23 years of service to the crown had taught him that duty came before personal feelings, but today would test that principle in ways he never imagined. The hushed conversations of palace staff echoed through the grand hallways, creating an atmosphere thick with tension. Word had spread quickly through the royal household about the incident that morning involving the young Princess Charlotte and her step-grandmother, Queen Camilla. What had begun as a simple family gathering for afternoon tea had escalated into something far more serious. Thomas had witnessed many changes during his years protecting the royal family. He had served under 3 different monarchs, watched princes grow into kings, and seen the delicate balance of royal protocol tested time and again. But nothing had prepared him for the sight he witnessed that Tuesday afternoon when 9-year-old Princess Charlotte came running down the palace corridor, tears streaming down her face, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. The little princess had always been a bright spot in the otherwise formal atmosphere of royal life. Her infectious laughter and genuine curiosity about the world around her had charmed even the most stoic members of the royal guard. Thomas had watched her grow from a toddler taking her first uncertain steps in the palace gardens to a confident young girl who greeted each guard by name and always remembered to ask about their families. Queen Camilla had been hosting what was meant to be an intimate family tea in the blue drawing room. The occasion was supposed to celebrate Princess Charlotte's recent academic achievements at school. The young princess had excelled in her literature studies and had written a particularly moving essay about her late grandmother, Princess Diana, based on stories her father had shared with her. The afternoon had started pleasantly enough. Palace staff had prepared Charlotte's favorite cucumber sandwiches and strawberry scones with clotted cream. The finest china had been brought out, and fresh flowers from the palace gardens adorned the room. Charlotte had arrived promptly at 3 o'clock, dressed in her favorite blue dress that reminded everyone of her grandmother's sapphire engagement ring. However, the mood shifted dramatically when Charlotte began reading excerpts from her school essay about Princess Diana. The young princess spoke with genuine admiration about the grandmother she had never met, describing her charitable work and the way she had connected with people from all walks of life. She mentioned how her father had told her that Princess Diana would have loved to teach her about helping others and making a difference in the world. Queen Camilla's expression grew increasingly strained as Charlotte continued reading. The essay contained innocent but pointed references to Diana's humanitarian legacy and her natural way with children. Charlotte spoke about wanting to follow in her grandmother's footsteps, visiting hospitals and supporting causes that helped people in need. She mentioned how her father had shown her videos of Princess Diana with children in Africa and how she hoped to do similar work when she grew older. The tension in the room became palpable when Charlotte mentioned her recent visit to a children's hospital, where several young patients had asked her about Princess Diana. Charlotte had told them the stories her father had shared, and the children had been fascinated to learn about the princess who had visited similar hospitals years before. Queen Camilla's patience finally snapped when Charlotte suggested that they could organize a memorial charity event in Princess Diana's honor. The young princess innocently proposed that such an event could bring the family together while helping children in need, just as her grandmother would have wanted. Rising abruptly from her chair, Queen Camilla's voice carried across the room with unexpected sharpness. She informed Charlotte that such constant references to the past were inappropriate and that it was time for the family to focus on the present and future rather than dwelling on what had been. She suggested that Charlotte's father had been filling her head with unnecessary stories that only served to complicate family dynamics. The harshness of Queen Camilla's tone shocked everyone present, including the palace staff who had been quietly attending to their duties. Charlotte's face crumpled as she realized she had somehow said something wrong, though she couldn't understand what that might be. The essay that had earned her praise from teachers and made her father proud had somehow caused offense in her own family. When Charlotte tried to apologize and explain that she only wanted to honor her grandmother's memory, Queen Camilla cut her off with a gesture. She announced that the tea was over and instructed her personal security detail to escort the princess back to her quarters. The dismissal was delivered with a coldness that left no room for discussion or explanation. Palace staff exchanged uncomfortable glances as Queen Camilla's security team moved to carry out her instructions. The sight of a tearful 9-year-old being formally escorted from a family gathering struck everyone present as profoundly wrong. Charlotte clutched her essay pages and her stuffed elephant, confusion and hurt written clearly across her young face. It was at this moment that Sergeant Major Thomas Hartwell, who had been stationed outside the blue drawing room, witnessed Princess Charlotte's distressed exit. The veteran guard had seen the little princess enter the room an hour earlier, excited and hopeful about sharing her academic success with her family. Now she was leaving in tears, accompanied by security personnel as if she were some kind of threat rather than a confused child. The image of Princess Charlotte's tear-stained face would haunt Thomas for the rest of that day. As someone who had dedicated his life to protecting the royal family, he understood that his duty extended beyond physical security. The emotional well-being of the young royals was equally important, and what he had witnessed represented a fundamental failure of that protective duty. Throughout the evening, Thomas found himself unable to shake the memory of Charlotte's distress. He thought about his own granddaughter, who was roughly the same age as the princess. The idea of any child being treated with such coldness by a family member stirred something deep within his protective instincts. As night fell over Kensington Palace, Thomas made a decision that would change everything. His years of service had taught him that sometimes protecting the royal family meant protecting them from themselves. The next morning, he would need to find the courage to speak a truth that others were afraid to voice. The palace corridors seemed unusually quiet that evening, as if the very walls were holding their breath in anticipation of what was to come. Thomas Hartwell spent a sleepless night preparing for a conversation that would test everything he believed about duty, loyalty, and moral courage. In the distance, palace staff continued their evening routines, but everyone who had witnessed the afternoon's events carried the weight of what they had seen. Princess Charlotte's innocent essay about her grandmother had opened old wounds and exposed tensions that ran deeper than anyone had realized. The stage was set for a confrontation that would force everyone involved to examine their priorities and consider what truly mattered in protecting the future of the monarchy. Thomas Hartwell, a man who had spent decades following orders without question, was about to discover that sometimes the greatest act of loyalty required the courage to speak uncomfortable truths to those in power. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning that none of them could have anticipated, sparked by one man's refusal to remain silent in the face of injustice toward a child who deserves nothing but love and protection from her family. The following morning arrived with a crisp autumn chill that seemed to mirror the tension hanging over Kensington Palace. Sergeant Major Thomas Hartwell had barely slept, his mind replaying the previous day's events over and over. He had served the crown through scandals, celebrations, and countless family disputes, but nothing had prepared him for the moral dilemma he now faced. As he dressed in his impeccable uniform, Thomas caught sight of his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back at him showed every one of his 52 years, with silver threading through his dark hair and lines etched by decades of service. But his eyes still held the determination that had carried him through military campaigns and royal protection duties alike. The palace staff moved through their morning routines with unusual subdued efficiency. Word of yesterday's incident had spread throughout the household, creating an atmosphere of uncomfortable anticipation. Kitchen staff prepared breakfast with whispered conversations, housekeepers cleaned with nervous energy, and even the gardeners seemed to work with extra care, as if trying to maintain perfection in a world that felt increasingly unstable. In the royal quarters, Princess Charlotte had awakened from a restless night filled with confused dreams. The 9-year-old struggled to understand why her essay about Princess Diana had caused such a strong reaction from Queen Camilla. She had worked so hard on the piece, staying up late to find just the right words to honor the grandmother she wished she could have known. Charlotte's nanny, Mrs. Elizabeth Morrison, had been with the family for over a decade and had witnessed the delicate dynamics that shaped royal relationships. She found the young princess sitting by her bedroom window, still clutching the essay that had caused such turmoil. The experienced caregiver had seen many family tensions over the years, but the treatment of Charlotte the previous day had crossed a line that troubled her deeply. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla was preparing for her morning appointments in her private study. The events of the previous afternoon had left her feeling justified in her actions, though she was aware of the uncomfortable atmosphere that had settled over the palace. In her view, she had simply established necessary boundaries regarding discussions of the past that could undermine the stability of current family relationships. Prince William had returned to the palace late the previous evening, unaware of what had transpired during his absence. He had been attending official engagements in Scotland and was looking forward to hearing about Charlotte's tea with Queen Camilla. When he learned the details from Charlotte's tearful account, his reaction was immediate and intense. The Prince of Wales found himself caught between his loyalty to his father's wife and his fierce protective instincts toward his daughter. Charlotte had innocently shared her pride in learning about Princess Diana, never imagining that such natural curiosity about her grandmother would be received as a threat or provocation. Thomas Hartwell had positioned himself strategically in the main corridor where he knew Queen Camilla would pass during her morning walk to the breakfast room. This route was part of her established daily routine, and he had calculated that the timing would allow for a private conversation without the presence of other staff members or family members. As Queen Camilla approached, accompanied by her usual complement of security personnel, Thomas stepped forward with military precision. His posture conveyed the respect demanded by protocol, but his expression held a gravity that immediately caught her attention. The Queen's security detail tensed slightly, recognizing that Thomas was acting outside normal procedures. However, his reputation as a trusted member of the Royal Protection Unit gave him credibility that few others possessed. His request for a private word was delivered with such formal courtesy that refusing would have appeared unreasonable. Queen Camilla paused in her morning routine, curious about what could have prompted such an unusual request from one of the most respected members of the palace guard. Thomas had served multiple members of the royal family with distinction, and his record was beyond reproach. His serious demeanor suggested that whatever he wished to discuss was of significant importance. The corridor where they stood was lined with portraits of previous monarchs and their families, creating a backdrop that emphasized the weight of royal history and tradition. The morning light streaming through tall windows cast dramatic shadows that seemed to underscore the gravity of the moment that was about to unfold. Thomas began by acknowledging Queen Camilla's position and expressing his deep respect for the crown. His words were carefully chosen to demonstrate that he understood the protocols and hierarchies that govern palace life. He emphasized his years of loyal service and his commitment to protecting not just the physical safety of the royal family, but their dignity and reputation as well. However, as Thomas continued speaking, his tone shifted to address the specific incident involving Princess Charlotte. He described what he had witnessed the previous afternoon, speaking with the measured precision of someone providing testimony. His account was factual and respectful, but it clearly conveyed his concern about how the situation had been handled. The veteran guard explained that in his professional opinion, the treatment of Princess Charlotte had created a security risk that extended beyond immediate physical concerns. He outlined how such incidents could affect the young princess's emotional well-being and potentially impact her future relationship with the institution of the monarchy itself. Thomas spoke about the importance of maintaining public confidence in the royal family's treatment of its youngest members. He referenced his experience in managing potential public relations challenges and explained how internal family conflicts could become external vulnerabilities if not addressed appropriately. Queen Camilla listened with growing tension as Thomas continued his measured presentation. She recognized that he was not simply offering casual commentary but was providing what amounted to a professional assessment of palace security and family dynamics. His approach was respectful but unflinchingly direct. The conversation took on additional weight when Thomas began discussing the broader implications of the incident. He spoke about the symbolic importance of Princess Charlotte within the modern monarchy and how her treatment reflected on the institution's values and priorities. As a protector who had witnessed the evolution of public sentiment toward the royal family over more than 2 decades, Thomas offered his perspective on the importance of maintaining consistency between the monarchy's public image and its private conduct. He explained how incidents involving children were particularly sensitive to public perception. Queen Camilla found herself in the unprecedented position of receiving what amounted to a professional briefing from a member of the security staff about family matters. The boundary between personal relationships and institutional responsibilities had become blurred in a way that challenged traditional palace hierarchies. Thomas concluded his initial comments by emphasizing his continued loyalty to the crown while making it clear that his primary responsibility was to protect all members of the royal family from all potential threats. His implication was unmistakable. Sometimes those threats came from within the family itself. The hallway fell silent as Queen Camilla processed what she had heard. The weight of Thomas's words hung in the air between them, creating a moment of tension that would determine the course of all future interactions. The seasoned guard waited respectfully for her response, knowing that his career and reputation hung in the balance of this extraordinary conversation. The morning sun continued to stream through the palace windows, illuminating a scene that would forever change the dynamics within the royal household. Thomas Hartwell had crossed a line that few had ever dared to cross, speaking truth to power in defense of a 9-year-old princess who had committed no crime beyond loving the memory of her grandmother. The silence that followed Thomas Hartwell's measured words stretched across the palace corridor like a taut wire ready to snap. Queen Camilla's expression had shifted through several phases during his presentation, from initial surprise to growing displeasure, and, finally, to something approaching calculation. The veteran guard remained at attention, his posture unwavering despite the gravity of what he had just undertaken. Queen Camilla's security detail exchanged uncertain glances, unsure how to respond to this unprecedented situation. Protocol provided no clear guidance for a scenario where a member of the royal guard directly challenged a senior royal's conduct. The tension in the air was palpable as everyone present understood they were witnessing a moment that would have far-reaching consequences. When Queen Camilla finally spoke, her voice carried the controlled authority that had been honed through years of public life. She thanked Thomas for his concerns but made it clear that family matters were outside the scope of security personnel responsibilities. Her tone suggested that the conversation should end there, with normal hierarchy and boundaries restored. However, Thomas Hartwell had not spent 23 years protecting the crown without learning when to stand firm. His response came with respectful but unmistakable determination. He acknowledged Queen Camilla's position but respectfully disagreed with her assessment of his responsibilities. In his professional judgment, anything that affected the emotional well-being of royal family members fell squarely within his protective duties. The veteran guard then did something that surprised everyone present. He requested permission to share observations from his years of service that directly related to the current situation. His approach was so formal and professional that refusing would have appeared unreasonable, even though Queen Camilla clearly preferred to end the conversation. Thomas began by describing specific incidents he had witnessed over the years involving public reactions to the royal family's treatment of children. He spoke about the intense scrutiny that surrounded every interaction involving young royals and how even minor incidents could escalate into major public relations challenges. His examples were carefully chosen and presented with the precision of a military briefing. The guard's most powerful argument came when he described the unique position Princess Charlotte held in public affection. He explained how her natural charm and obvious intelligence had captured hearts during her few public appearances. The British people, he noted, saw in her a connection to beloved Princess Diana while also representing the future of the monarchy. Queen Camilla's discomfort became increasingly apparent as Thomas continued his analysis. He was essentially explaining how public sentiment worked in ways that royal family members sometimes failed to understand. His years of observing crowds, reading security briefings, and monitoring public reactions had given him insights that few others possessed. The conversation took a crucial turn when Thomas addressed the specific content of Princess Charlotte's essay. He explained that her innocent desire to honor Princess Diana's memory was not only natural for a child her age but was also aligned with public expectations. Attempting to suppress or discourage such natural curiosity could create exactly the kind of family tension that the monarchy needed to avoid. Thomas spoke about the delicate balance required in managing Princess Diana's legacy within the current royal family structure. He acknowledged the complex emotions involved but emphasized that 9-year-old Charlotte should not be burdened with adult political considerations. Her innocent questions and natural affection for her grandmother's memory deserved nurturing rather than correction. The guard's most pointed observation concerned the long-term implications of the previous day's incident. He suggested that treating Princess Charlotte harshly for expressing love for Princess Diana could create lasting damage to her relationship with the institution of the monarchy itself. Such emotional wounds in childhood often shaped adult perspectives in ways that could prove problematic for future royal duties. Queen Camilla attempted to interrupt several times, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. However, Thomas's professional approach made it difficult to dismiss his concerns without appearing to ignore legitimate security considerations. His presentation had transformed what could have been seen as insubordination into what appeared to be a crucial security briefing. The tension reached a critical point when Thomas made his most direct statement. Speaking with the quiet authority of someone who had dedicated his life to royal service, he expressed his professional opinion that Princess Charlotte deserved an apology for the previous day's treatment. His words were carefully modulated, but their meaning was unmistakable. The veteran guard explained that such an apology would serve multiple purposes. It would demonstrate the royal family's commitment to treating all members with dignity, it would show Princess Charlotte that her feelings mattered, and it would establish a precedent for handling similar situations in the future. Most importantly, it would be the right thing to do for a confused and hurt little girl. Queen Camilla's response was swift and sharp. She informed Thomas that his suggestions were inappropriate and that he was overstepping his authority. Her voice carried the edge of someone accustomed to having her decisions accepted without question. She made it clear that family discipline was not subject to review by household staff, regardless of their years of service. However, Thomas had anticipated this reaction and had prepared his most important point for exactly this moment. With respectful but unwavering conviction, he reminded Queen Camilla that his oath of service was to the crown itself, not to any individual member of the royal family. His duty was to protect the institution of the monarchy, and sometimes that meant protecting it from decisions that could cause long-term damage. The guard's final argument focused on the broader implications of the incident. He suggested that treating Princess Charlotte with kindness and understanding would strengthen the monarchy's future, while creating lasting emotional wounds could weaken it. His perspective was that of someone who had watched the royal family navigate multiple crises and understood what kinds of actions led to positive or negative outcomes. Thomas concluded by offering a specific recommendation. He suggested that Queen Camilla could demonstrate remarkable grace by acknowledging that the previous day's situation could have been handled differently. Such acknowledgement would not require admitting fault but would show the kind of wisdom and compassion that the British people expected from their royal family. The corridor fell silent once again as Queen Camilla processed this unprecedented challenge to her authority. Thomas Hartwell remained at attention, having delivered what he believed was essential truth regardless of personal consequences. The other security personnel present understood they had witnessed something extraordinary, though none could predict what would happen next. The morning sun had shifted position during their extended conversation, casting new patterns of light and shadow across the portrait-lined hallway. The faces of previous monarchs seemed to watch from their gilded frames, silent witnesses to a moment that would test the principles upon which the modern monarchy was built. Queen Camilla faced a decision that would reveal much about her character and her understanding of her role within the royal family. Thomas Hartwell had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about her treatment of Princess Charlotte, and her response would set the tone for all future family dynamics involving the young princess who carried so much of the monarchy's future hopes. The weight of Thomas Hartwell's words hung heavy in the palace corridor as Queen Camilla struggled to process what had just occurred. Never in her years as a member of the royal family had she been so directly challenged by a member of the household staff. The veteran guard's respectful but unwavering stance had created a situation that demanded a response, yet every option seemed fraught with complications. Queen Camilla's initial impulse was to assert her authority and end the conversation immediately. She could have Thomas disciplined or even dismissed for his unprecedented intervention in family matters. However, something in his demeanor and the careful way he had presented his concerns gave her pause. His obvious dedication to the royal family's well-being was undeniable, even if his methods were unorthodox. The security personnel present remained frozen in an uncomfortable tableau, unsure whether they should intervene or allow the extraordinary conversation to continue. Thomas Hartwell's reputation as one of the most trusted and experienced members of the Royal Protection Unit complicated any immediate response. Disciplining him would raise questions throughout the palace about what had prompted such drastic action. As Queen Camilla considered her options, footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. Prince William was approaching, having heard that his stepmother was engaged in an extended conversation with palace security. His presence would add another layer of complexity to an already delicate situation, particularly given his strong reaction to learning about Charlotte's treatment the previous evening. Thomas recognized the approaching footsteps and understood that the dynamics of the conversation were about to shift dramatically. His window for achieving a peaceful resolution was closing rapidly. With military precision, he made one final, carefully calculated appeal to Queen Camilla's better nature. Speaking with quiet intensity, Thomas described the image that had haunted him throughout the sleepless night. He painted a picture of 9-year-old Princess Charlotte, confused and tearful, clutching her essay about the grandmother she had never met. He spoke about the innocence in her eyes and her genuine desire to honor family memory through acts of kindness and charity. The guard's voice carried a tremor of emotion as he described how Charlotte's essay had revealed a child's natural compassion and her desire to help others. He explained that such qualities should be celebrated and nurtured rather than discouraged or punished. The princess represented everything positive about the monarchy's future, and protecting her emotional well-being was essential to protecting the crown itself. Queen Camilla found herself genuinely moved by Thomas's passionate defense of Princess Charlotte. Despite her earlier anger at his presumption, she could not deny the sincerity of his concern or the validity of many of his points. The veteran guard clearly cared deeply about the royal family's welfare, even if his methods of expressing that concern were unconventional. As Prince William drew closer, Queen Camilla realized that she was approaching a moment that would define her relationship with her step-grandchildren for years to come. The conversation with Thomas had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about her actions and their potential consequences. She could continue defending her position, or she could demonstrate the grace and wisdom that true leadership required. Thomas, sensing the shift in Queen Camilla's demeanor, made his final and most important statement. With all the authority of his years of service, he delivered a single sentence that would echo through the palace corridors for years to come: "Your Majesty, sometimes protecting the crown means protecting it from our own pride." The simplicity and truth of those words cut through all the complexity and justification that had surrounded the previous day's incident. Thomas had distilled the entire situation down to its essential element: the choice between personal pride and institutional wisdom. His years of observing royal family dynamics had taught him that the monarchy's greatest threats often came from within, when individual ego conflicted with collective responsibility. Queen Camilla stood silent for a long moment, absorbing the impact of Thomas's words. The veteran guard had not merely criticized her actions, he had offered her a path toward redemption that would demonstrate strength rather than weakness. Acknowledging her mistake could be seen as evidence of wisdom and compassion rather than defeat. Prince William arrived at the scene to find an unexpectedly subdued atmosphere. The tension that had characterized the early part of the conversation had given way to something more contemplative. Thomas Hartwell remained at attention, while Queen Camilla appeared to be deep in thought rather than angry or defensive. The Prince of Wales quickly assessed the situation and recognized that something significant had transpired. Thomas's presence and formal posture suggested that this was not a casual conversation, while Queen Camilla's expression indicated that she had been genuinely affected by whatever had been discussed. Without waiting for explanations, Prince William addressed the elephant in the room. He spoke directly to Queen Camilla about Charlotte's distress the previous evening and his own concern about how the situation had been handled. His tone was respectful but firm, making it clear that his primary loyalty was to his daughter's emotional well-being. Thomas found himself in the unique position of having his professional assessment validated by Prince William's personal observations. The convergence of institutional and family concerns created a powerful argument for addressing the situation constructively rather than defensively. Queen Camilla realized that she was facing a coalition of concern that extended beyond a single guard's opinion. The combination of Thomas's professional expertise and Prince William's paternal instincts created a compelling case for reconsidering her approach to the previous day's events. The corridor conversation had evolved into something far more significant than anyone had anticipated. What had begun as Thomas Hartwell's individual act of moral courage had become a catalyst for broader reflection on family dynamics and institutional responsibilities within the modern monarchy. As the three figures stood in the morning light filtering through the palace windows, each understood that they had reached a turning point. The decisions made in the next few minutes would determine not only Princess Charlotte's immediate well-being but also the tone for family relationships going forward. Thomas Hartwell had achieved something remarkable through his careful intervention. He had created space for healing and growth where there had previously been only tension and misunderstanding. His single powerful sentence had reframed the entire situation from a question of authority to a question of wisdom. Queen Camilla found herself facing a choice that would reveal the depth of her commitment to the royal family's welfare. She could choose the path of pride and defend her actions, or she could choose the path of grace and demonstrate the kind of leadership that strengthened rather than divided the monarchy. The palace corridor had become an unlikely venue for a moment of truth that would ripple through the royal household for years to come. Thomas Hartwell's courageous intervention had forced everyone involved to examine their priorities and consider what truly mattered in protecting both individual family members and the institution they all served. The transformation in Queen Camilla's demeanor was subtle but unmistakable to those who knew how to read the nuanced language of royal expression. Thomas Hartwell's profound words about protecting the crown from pride had created a moment of genuine reflection that cut through layers of defensiveness and protocol. The veteran guard watched as the Queen processed not just his challenge, but the deeper truth it contained about leadership and humility. Prince William observed the exchange with growing understanding of what Thomas had accomplished. The guard's intervention had created an opportunity for healing that might not have existed otherwise. The prince recognized that his stepmother was genuinely grappling with the implications of her actions, rather than simply defending them out of stubbornness. After what felt like an eternity but was actually only a few minutes, Queen Camilla straightened her shoulders and made a decision that would define her legacy within the royal family. With quiet dignity, she acknowledged that Thomas had shown considerable courage in bringing his concerns forward, and that such dedication to the family's well-being deserved serious consideration rather than dismissal. Her words came slowly but with increasing conviction as she admitted that the previous day's situation could indeed have been handled with greater sensitivity. She spoke about the complexity of managing family dynamics while also acknowledging that 9-year-old Charlotte should not bear the burden of adult complications and historical tensions. The Queen's acknowledgement sent a ripple of surprise through the security personnel present. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a senior royal accepting criticism from household staff and responding with grace rather than anger. Thomas Hartwell had not only delivered his message successfully but had done so in a way that allowed Queen Camilla to demonstrate wisdom rather than weakness in her response. Prince William expressed his appreciation for Queen Camilla's willingness to reconsider the situation. He emphasized that his primary concern was Charlotte's emotional well-being, but he also recognized the difficult position that all adults in the family faced when navigating the complex legacy of Princess Diana. His mature response helped create an atmosphere of family unity rather than division. Thomas Hartwell remained silent during this exchange, understanding that his role was now complete. He had created the space for reconciliation, but the healing itself had to come from the family members directly involved. His professional instincts told him that the conversation was moving in a positive direction and that further intervention on his part would be counterproductive. The discussion then turned to practical matters of how to address the situation with Princess Charlotte herself. Queen Camilla, now fully committed to making amends, asked for specific suggestions about how to approach the young princess in a way that would repair any emotional damage while also demonstrating family unity and support. Prince William shared insights into his daughter's sensitive nature and her genuine desire to understand and honor her grandmother's memory. He explained that Charlotte had been deeply hurt not by any correction of her behavior, but by the harshness of the response to her innocent expression of family pride. The young princess needed to understand that her love for Princess Diana's memory was welcomed and valued by all family members. Thomas, when asked for his professional perspective, suggested that a gesture of recognition for Charlotte's essay might be appropriate. He proposed that acknowledging the quality of her work and her genuine desire to help others would demonstrate family support for her positive instincts. Such recognition could transform a negative experience into a positive one while reinforcing the values that the royal family wanted to encourage. The veteran guard also recommended that any conversation with Princess Charlotte should emphasize the family's united commitment to carrying forward Princess Diana's legacy of compassion and service. This approach would validate Charlotte's natural instincts while also establishing a framework for future discussions about family history and responsibility. Queen Camilla surprised everyone by proposing an even more significant gesture. She suggested organizing a small family event where Charlotte could share more of her research about Princess Diana's charitable work, with family members contributing their own memories and perspectives. Such an occasion would demonstrate that discussing Diana's legacy was not only acceptable but encouraged when done with love and respect. The proposal represented a complete reversal from the previous day's rejection of Charlotte's innocent sharing. Prince William recognized the gesture for what it was, a genuine attempt to heal relationships while also establishing healthier patterns for future family interactions. As the conversation drew to a close, Queen Camilla specifically thanked Thomas Hartwell for his intervention. She acknowledged that his willingness to speak difficult truths had prevented a small family incident from becoming a lasting source of division. Her gratitude was genuine and reflected her growing understanding of the guard's true motivations. Thomas accepted the thanks with characteristic humility, emphasizing that his actions had been motivated solely by his dedication to protecting the royal family's welfare. He expressed confidence that the family's commitment to addressing the situation would ensure positive outcomes for everyone involved, especially Princess Charlotte. The group dispersed with a sense of resolution that had seemed impossible just an hour earlier. Thomas returned to his regular duties, knowing that he had fulfilled his deepest obligation to the crown. Queen Camilla proceeded to her appointments with a new perspective on the delicate balance required in family leadership. Prince William headed to find his daughter, carrying good news that would help heal her confused and wounded feelings. Later that morning, Princess Charlotte received an unexpected visit from Queen Camilla, who arrived carrying a beautiful leather-bound journal embossed with the royal crest. The Queen explained that the journal was a gift to encourage Charlotte's excellent writing and to provide a special place for her to record her thoughts about family, history, and her hopes for the future. The conversation that followed was gentle and affirming. Queen Camilla apologized for her harsh response the previous day, explaining that adults sometimes made mistakes when dealing with complex emotions. She praised Charlotte's essay about Princess Diana and encouraged her to continue learning about her grandmother's remarkable life and charitable work. Most importantly, Queen Camilla assured Charlotte that her love for Princess Diana's memory was something the entire family shared and valued. She explained that sometimes adults needed time to process their own feelings, but that should never prevent children from expressing their natural curiosity and affection for family members. The transformation was remarkable. Charlotte's tears of confusion were replaced by smiles of relief and renewed enthusiasm. The young princess showed Queen Camilla additional research she had done about Princess Diana's work with children, and they discussed ways that Charlotte might begin her own age-appropriate charitable activities. Word of the successful resolution spread quietly through the palace, carried by the subtle communications network that connected all levels of royal household staff. Thomas Hartwell's courageous intervention had not only protected Princess Charlotte but had also demonstrated the positive impact that moral courage could have on even the most complex family dynamics. The incident became a turning point in Queen Camilla's relationship with her step-grandchildren, marked by increased sensitivity to their emotional needs and a deeper appreciation for the delicate nature of blended family relationships. Thomas Hartwell's single powerful sentence about protecting the crown from pride had catalyzed a transformation that strengthened the entire royal family structure. In the months that followed, Princess Charlotte flourished under the renewed family support for her interests and aspirations. Her essay about Princess Diana was eventually published in a children's charity anthology, with proceeds supporting the very causes that had inspired her original research. The incident that began with tears and confusion ultimately became a source of pride and family unity. Thomas Hartwell continued his dedicated service to the crown, secure in the knowledge that sometimes the greatest protection he could offer came not from